just to warn you, we're gonna come at you with some really hard-hitting questions. Okay,
you got it.
Real nitty-gritty stuff.
You got it. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for the fight.
Are you just holed up in your home right now during all of this?
Yeah, for the most part. I'm the errand man in the house, so I'm the one that goes to the grocery store. We took a vote. We found out that I was the most expendable. So I'm the one that goes to Costco and waits in line for, it actually hasn't been that bad, half hour to an hour. I'm the one that goes to the grocery store, but I'd actually prefer it that way. So it's all good. I tell you what, man, we've made the most out of the whole situation. We've had a good time. I've got two boys. They're 11 and 9. So we've tried to do some unique things and make it fun for all of them, but it could be a lot worse. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, so there was no internet. There were no on-demand movies. There was none of that. So we have all the luxuries you could ever want if you're going to be stuck in your house.
Right.
All right. So we are recording. Everything's going well. So welcome to the show, Brian Sieman, Clippers TV play-by-play.
Hi, buddy.
How you guys doing?
Good. Getting through it day by day, trying to figure it out as we all do. Fighting the temptation to drink bleach.
I heard
you can inject it as well.
Yeah.
You can inject it as well. So
yeah, well, I just ran out of hypodermics, so I can just mix it up with some water and ice and make it.
I don't have any clean spoons, so I can't get it hot enough.
How have you been, man?
We've been good. It's crazy because it's such a big deal. It's global, right? So while I miss basketball, like I'm not hurt by it. Like there's nothing going on, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like we're watching other sports. It's not like I'm listening to other broadcasters be able to get to do what they want to do. We're all in the same boat. The good news is my family, both locally and extended, is healthy. And, we've tried to make the most out of this whole situation. I've got two young boys, as we were talking about before, and we just try to do unique things. We have movies night pretty much every other night. We've camped out in our backyard, that kind of stuff. So like I said, we're trying to make the most out of it. I know a lot of people are in that same boat, and, hopefully, we're all staying at home and we're flattening the curve, and in no time at all, we'll be back to work.
Yeah, definitely. Have you been part of the Zoom workouts with the team? Have you been lifting with the trainers?
You're not going to believe this, but no, I haven't. Man. I tell you what, it was funny. I remember this is a couple of years ago. DeAndre was he was rehabbing. I thought he had been out. I think it was an ankle sprain, and he was doing this crazy workout. And it was like with ropes, it was like exercise bike for 20 minutes, but like high intensity interval training and, just running sprints. And I'm like, oh, he's just rehabbing. No, he was cleared. So he went to a full 2-hour practice. So their warm-ups are insane before they even get to practice. I can't imagine what their weight sessions are like. So even if I had been invited, I would pretend that I'd have a shoddy internet connection and wouldn't be able to join.
I do have a question. Are you destroying your boys in basketball? Because I know that you have the hoop. Do you let them win, or do you assert dominance with your children?
So, that's a great question, because I've thought of it, because I actually don't let up. It's not one-on-one. That would be obviously too easy. But my youngest is the guy that likes to play, and we play around the world and we play pig. And I don't go easy on him. I'm not a super basketball player, but I could play. I could shoot a little bit. And so we get around the world, and he does win every once in a while, but I don't let up. And if I ever get if I feel like he's getting, too big for his britches, I just go in pig. I go to a left-handed layup, which he cannot do. He's too young, and it's lights out. So whenever he starts talking trash, he knows that left-handed layup is coming, and he quiets down.
That'd get me too. I'd be out. Lefty layup, I'm out. I can't do it. I have no.
I'm not necessarily skilled at it, but I can get it there.
Speaking of playing with the boys, you did that commercial where you're calling the game. Is that your actual kids in the commercial playing?
Those are my boys. So that's my youngest, Henry, who is taking our dog, Freddie, off the bounce. And then my son was playing the role of stage manager, handing me the card. And my wonderful wife was the director in like a 1917 style of one shot video, got it all to go down. So it was
you guys recorded that whole thing yourself and then sent it to Fox?
On our phone, my phone. It was that was actually our first take that we did. I think we did 3 takes. That was our first one. And to my son's credit, he made all the free throws, and no, it was good.
Wow.
It was a good show.
Wow.
So excited.
You qualified?
That on TV.
What's that?
How excited were they to see that on TV?
So I don't know if they saw it on TV. I showed them on Twitter, and I told them that, like, I think at the time when I showed them, there was like 23,000 people had seen it. And I think they got a little excited. In fact, I know they got a little excited, and it was cool because there were comments about each one of them, which was pretty neat to see. So it was a fun thing to do. Fox asked us to do something, and that's what we came up with.
And now they're just like, I can't work under these conditions.
They want a trailer. They need water at room temperature, all that kind of stuff.
Did their SAG cards come in the mail yet, or are you still waiting on those?
It's coming. Registered last week, and it's coming, and it's going to be good for them.
That's good. That's really good. So I got a question, just to kind of start us off. You played ball in high school, right?
I played until I went out for the junior team, and I realized I wasn't going to make it, and then I would have stuck with it, but we had a radio station, so I chose to call play-by-play because that's where I wanted to be anyway. I knew that's what I wanted to do, so it was an easy way for me to leave. So it was an easy way for me to leave, and I called those games for the last 2 years of my high school career. Wow.
Who would you say your game most closely resembles?
Let's see here. It was I was a shooter. Okay, that didn't make shots. So I'll let you figure out.
Monte Ellis, maybe.
Oh no! I was tall. I was tall for the high school team, so my position would have been like power forward. But in my mind, my favorite player was Magic, so I wanted to be a guard. I could shoot. Like, it wasn't a thing to shoot threes back in those days. Coaches forbid us to do it. But in our intramural games, I was the shooter that was who would be a chucker? I was like a Dion Waiters, right? So I would get hot every 10 games. And when I got hot, I let everybody know about it. But I was literally the most inefficient player in the history of intramural basketball in the 90s.
Good. You were just crushing weed gummies the whole time.
I was definitely out of shape, I can tell you that.
That's good. That's really good.
So you said that you, even in high school, you wanted to be in broadcast. How do you get, what made you want to be a broadcaster versus a player or anything else?
It was actually second grade is kind of when I knew what I wanted to do. Play-by-play, I didn't know. I just knew I wanted to be like a sports anchor at that time. The world of sports was intriguing to me. This was back in the day when college basketball and athletes were like giants in our world, in the late 80s. And my second grade teacher was dating a local anchor in Des Moines, Iowa. And he had come to speak to our class, and he made this lifestyle look like it was awesome. Like, he just, he would drive to Iowa City. I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa. He'd drive to Iowa City. He'd interview the players, and then he'd go and talk about it on TV. And I don't know how it was when you guys were growing up, but back in that day, the local anchors were like celebrities in my world. And I'm like, this is the life. Little did I know you have a lot of education you got to do. There's a lot more work to do than just going and talking on television. But that's what intrigued me. And then I saw the NBA maybe a couple of years later, and it just blew my mind. The league, the history, the players, the ability. Michael Jordan was on the rise, but I was a Magic fan. And I said to myself that I had to get into the NBA. That's all I wanted to do. And I think from a career decision, every decision I made had that in mind. So I got lucky to go to a high school that had a high school radio station, called the games there. And, the rest, as they say, I hit every rung on the ladder for sure, but that's where it all started.
So when you started watching the NBA and kind of focusing on the broadcast side of it, who was it that you were like, that's the guy I want to be like, that's the broadcaster I want to be like?
I think it took time because there weren't options at that point in time. So there wasn't like NBA League Pass. There wasn't a digital subscription to hear radio play-by-play guys, right? So the voices in my head that I still love to hear, Dick Stockton. This is when the NBA was on CBS. That's how long ago it was. But then when Marv came into the picture in 1990, I'm like, this guy is like the Beatles. And when I mean, he's just classic and timeless in any era. And the fun thing about that was when they went to NBC, Marv's partner was Mike Fratello, who I got to work with this year a handful of times, more than a handful of times. I loved those two guys back then. That was like my thing. Like Fratello killed me. This is 30 years ago. And when I found out we were going to work together this year, I was over the moon. And he is such a gentleman. He's such a great guy. But like those guys, were the ones that I'm like, okay, I can see a blueprint. Marv is very fundamental. But as I got older, Kevin Harlan was the guy that really spoke to me. He did both TV and radio. If you haven't heard him call a radio game, whether it's football or basketball, find a way to do so. It's the most incredible thing you'll hear. But there was such an array of people as I got older. The internet became a thing, and I could listen to everyone across the dial in different sports and in different leagues, and just kind of cut your teeth and take notes and just pull something from someone. Every time you listen, you'll learn whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And that's kind of how I was able to kind of polish the craft a little bit.
Nice. So when you called your first game with Mike, were you kind of having like moments of like, I can't believe I'm here doing this? Or were you just so focused on the game that you didn't have time to kind of let the surrealism set in of where you had gotten?
It's a good question, because by the time I worked with Mike, I think I had probably a couple dozen games under my belt from a TV standpoint. I think the real challenge is when you become a broadcaster in the NBA is just the game night schedule, which I've done, over 1,000 times. So I have that scheduled down. So I was pretty at ease. The funny thing was, he was working on the telestrator like repeatedly, and obviously the czar of the telestrator. And so I'm like, I cannot believe that I'm sitting here watching him fix the telestrator, tell the truck what he wants. And I'm thinking about all my friends back in the 90s when we were watching these games, and we'd love Fratello and we'd talk about Fratello. And I didn't want to lay it on too thick, but I did tell him, I was like, this is like a legit dream come true for me to work with you. I felt like he thought I was just saying it, but hand on a Bible, man, it was like one of the coolest things. And I'm hoping he does more games this year and hopefully next year as well.
So you didn't ask him to tell us right to play on your chest, right? That's not what happened.
Not my chest, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good. At least you got it somewhere.
So in terms of like basketball broadcasting, I know you were doing work with the Lynx for a few years. Was there something before that, or how did you kind of fall into work in the WNBA?
Sure. I mean, there's a plight that you take. As I said earlier, I hit every rung on the ladder. So I went to the University of Kansas, which had and has a great journalism program, and was on the student station there. My first job out of college was in a small town called Jefferson, Iowa, where I did play-by-play. I sold advertising, which I was awful at. I sold advertising. I was supposed to sell advertising. I was there for about 4 months. I don't think I made a single sale. I made maybe $11,000 for the year because you're commission based. Right. So it wasn't really a profitable venture, but it was one that I needed to take. And then from there, I got into the minor leagues and I got to the CBA, and from the CBA is where I jumped into the WNBA. So there was a natural progression there. And the WNBA was and is one of my all-time favorite jobs. I love that league. I'm so glad that the players are going to get compensated. I love what the league is trying to do with the players. But that was the big break. And when I was in the CBA, this is many years ago, I wrote every announcer in the league. I said, here, and it was a personalized letter. So I wrote, here's what I've listened to you, here's what I like, here's where I am, here's where I want to go, what's your advice? And two guys came back and said, get to the WNBA as fast as you can. You're going to be hired by an NBA team, you're going to be in an NBA market, and you're going to be able to, showcase whatever ability you have. And I got into that league in 2002. And then shortly thereafter, I became the Wolves backup announcer because that team is and was run by the Timberwolves. So the director of broadcasting for the Wolves was the director of broadcasting for the Lynx. He hired me. I became their backup announcer the following season and got to call some NBA games fairly early in my career, which was such a thrill. In fact, my first ever game was at Staples Center. It was Timberwolves Lakers, and Shaq and Kobe combined for like 70 plus points. But that's how the progression worked. And, you know, I would love to sit here and tell you that I'm super talented, but it's about being lucky. It's about working hard and kind of finding the right path.
Stop
That's how it worked. I promise.
Stop.
Promise.
When you were with the Lynx, did you have any experience with Prince at all? I have to ask.
Oh, we all have regrets in life. And this is my biggest regret ever. So the year is 2000. I want to say it was 2007. Mm-hmm. And Prince is on a world tour, and I think he's in the middle of it, and he's playing in Minneapolis. And before the game, so like in the WNBA, like the travel party is like 18 to 20 people. With the Clippers, it's like 70, right? So the 18 players, coaches, broadcaster, and trainer, we're all pretty tight. And before the game, one of the players comes up to me and says, "Hey, after the game, we're going to Paisley Park. Prince is doing an after show just for us." And I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, he's doing one tomorrow as well. She's doing 2 shows for us." And I'm like, "You know what? I'm usually tired after a game. I'll go to the one tomorrow." And they're like, "Yeah, we'll see you there. We'll hook you up. We'll give you all the." Yeah, no kidding. Yep, you got it. So they go. And I run into them the next day, and they're like, "Brian, it was so crazy. We got up on stage. He was taking requests. He sang all the songs we wanted to hear. He asked everybody one song they wanted to play. He played it." And I'm like, "Great, man. Well, when's it tonight?" He's like, "Oh, he's not doing it tonight. He had to cancel."
Oh my God.
I literally, I just sat there, and I could not believe how stupid I was, how stupid I was. And I just could not, and I cannot fathom making that decision. Yeah. Your look is appropriate.
Oh, all right, Brian. Well, it was great to have you on the show. We're going to have to end it there.
It's the worst decision I've ever made. It really is.
I was going to ask if you regretted not hanging around for the 2015 championship in Minnesota and getting like a private concert at his house, but you topped that one, buddy.
Yeah, that's really bad.
It was awful.
That's really bad.
I just can't even begin. I heard other stories as that season went on, and it was one of those. I was at that time not very mature. I just emotionally was like, "Oh, who cares? It's just Prince." No, it's cool for you guys. I'm not that big of a Prince fan. I literally had like almost all of his albums. Like, I loved him. I just cannot believe. Seize the day, kids. If you take anything away, seize the day.
Oh man. So I think it was during your time in the WNBA in the off season, you were bartending and gambling. Is that right?
And gambling. That's what I want to hear about.
Talk us through those days.
So I played a few times in person, like in tournament style, but I did a lot of it, almost 90% of it online. And so I lived in Denver with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. We had dated for many years. And during my WNBA off season, I would live in Denver, and then the Wolves, where I would just meet them wherever they needed me. So my days were full of playing online poker. And I turned in. So back in the day, you could buy in like to a site, and I don't remember the site. One of the sites I played on was Ultimate Bet. Another one was like Pacific Poker. You could buy in, and they would double, sometimes triple your buy-in. Like, so you would put in $100 in their bank. They'd give you $300 in credit that you could use, but you had to play a certain amount of tournaments to get that money back. Well, I was a studied player. I read books. I knew theory. I watched it on TV. And so I turned that into a pretty good chunk. Now, I wasn't driving nice cars, but I was able to make a living out of it, a small living. And then at night I would go play. I'd go bartend. And I did that for about 18 months. And I don't miss it. Like, I quit right when I got into the NBA. I stopped. I don't miss it. I don't have a gambling problem. I think I've played in a tournament a couple of times when we were in Vegas for Summer League. One of them, it was a small tournament, maybe 80 people, but that was literally, I haven't played in like 6 years. So those are my gambling stories. Every time I was involved in a hand, and have you guys ever played Texas Hold'em No Limit?
Yeah.
I've played.
I feel
not good.
So especially in person, when you play, anytime I get into a pot with somebody or a group of people, the feeling that when the pot is over, whether I've won or lost, is like narrowly avoiding a car accident. Like that's how your heart rate goes. And I don't miss it. And I wasn't ever going to be great at it because I would throw the bet out there and I'd be like, that's a car payment. That's rent for the month. And that's the opposite of how you're supposed to think. So when you play tournament poker, you only buy in for a certain amount. So I think the most I ever bought in for was maybe like $500. And that's your fixed loss. No matter if you lose the first hand or the last hand, that's the most you can lose. And those are my poker days. I don't miss them, but I had fun at the time.
I have a feeling that this whole "I don't miss him" thing is like you downplaying how much you loved Prince for the party. I feel like I don't buy it. I don't buy that you don't miss it. I saw it. You scratched your neck in the middle of that.
That is a tell. That is a tell. You've read Mike Carroll's poker book of tells. I do have. So when I prep, I have my office and I have a desk, and I when I went, I think it's the Mirage I was at, and I played there the last time I played, and I bought $30 of $1 chips. So I had 30 chips, and I like to shuffle them. So when I'm prepping and I'm reading articles, I'm shuffling them and I'm flipping them around in my hands like you see on TV. So I guess it's not fully out of me, but I don't see myself getting into a pot anytime soon.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So I think we're now your backup announcer for the Wolves, right? So how did you get to the Clippers? What was your path to the Clippers?
It's an interesting story, maybe to me. So it's 2005, and on January 1st, I made a New Year's resolution. So my career was very important to me. This was like my whole life's focus, and so I'm not married, with no kids. I'm living with my girlfriend, soon to be wife. But like my job, my career was number one on my list. So on January 1st, my New Year's resolution was something to do every day to advance my career. And my initial goal was to reach out to every director of broadcasting in the NBA with, again, a personalized letter. Here's where I'm at. What advice do you have for me? Will you critique a tape? And so I did that. I sent out a letter to everyone, and I got great response and great feedback. And the Clippers wrote me back, and they said, "Hey, send us your stuff. Would love to listen to it. Stay on me if you don't hear from us. Just keep emailing me." So I did. For a few months, we played tag, and they finally emailed me back in April of 2005, and they said, "Hey, good news, bad news. I have not heard your stuff yet, but we have an opening. Stay tuned." And I'm like, great. And that's all you want, is to be able to communicate with a decision maker and have your stuff in their hands. So that was April. Come July, they said, "Hey, you've made the cut. We're going to fly you out and we're going to interview you. You're down to our final 3," which was like I'm like, man, I'm doing something right. I've made it to the top 3. And there was a part of me that took solace in that. I'm like, hey man, this is gravy, what happens here, but let's knock it out of the park. So they fly me out, and I interview with, a handful of people. I thought it went really well. I fly back that night. And as I'm leaving, the team president at the time says, "Hey, I've got a really good feeling about you." And I'm like losing my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. Week goes by, 2 weeks go by, and they call me. And you're just kind of nervous. I'm young, and my emotions can run a little high, and I'm butterflies every day. I wake up thinking, is this the day? Well, they call me and they say, "Hey, we decided to go with the guy out of Dallas, but stay in touch. We're going to call you in 2 weeks." And I'm like, "Who did you pick out of Dallas?" And like, "Oh, Matt Pinto." And I'm like, well, if I knew Matt was in for the job, I would have never been excited. I would have just taken the whole thing as experience because Matt's terrific. So they said they're going to call me in 2 weeks. And I'm like, right. So literally 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from the team president again at the time. And he says, "Hey, listen, I want you to know how close you were. We had a contract ready for you. All of us loved you, but we just felt like we needed a veteran presence." And I said, "Look, you made the right choice. Matt's amazing." And he's like, "I guarantee you this, you will be a Clipper before your time is up." And I said, okay. And that, while that was nice to hear, it actually hurt more. Like I was really devastated to not get the gig in a lot of ways, understanding that Matt was terrific. So the following summer, I ultimately get the Timberwolves job, but they only signed me to a 1-year deal, and which was fine. I didn't care. The money wasn't good. I didn't care. I was in the NBA. And at the end of my contract, the Wolves come to me and say, hey, let's negotiate year 2. Have your agent call us and we'll get it done. And so my wife and I were actually house hunting in Minnesota. And this is in '07. So if you recall, the bubble of the housing market was peaking.
Mhm.
And we found a house that we thought we could live in for a long time. And we go in, we see it, we tell our realtor, said, we'll give him the asking price. Let's just do it. He's like, all right, I'll make the bid. I was flying to Seattle for a WNBA game for the following day. I was leaving that night. And I land in Seattle and the realtor says, hey, sorry, you didn't get it. I'm like, we gave them what they were asking for. What are you talking about? He's like, oh, you got outbid by $50,000. The house was not worth that much. So we're like, oh, okay. And I was super bummed, really bummed to not get that house. Meanwhile, we're negotiating with the Wolves. Literally 5 minutes later, I get a call from the Clippers that says, hey, what is your contract status with the Timberwolves? And I said, I don't have one for next year right now. I'm in a different world. Like, I'm not thinking about anything other than what just occurred. And I'm thinking that they're trying to renegotiate with somebody else and they just want to see what's going on. And like, oh, you don't have a contract for next year? Hold on a second. And the team president gets on the phone and he goes, I'm going to offer you a contract right now. Would you like to be our radio voice? Can you fly out this week and talk about it? And I'm like, wait, what? And sure enough, I flew out there and he says, we're going to do it right this time. Is 2 weeks enough time for you to think about it? Do you need more time? We want you here. We want you to take over for Ralph. Can we fly your wife out here? What can we do? And I'm like, no, I'll just come out there and we'll talk. And we chatted it up and the rest, as they say. So in September of '07 is when I became a Clipper.
Wow.
And so that's how it all worked out. It was a crazy run, a good run, and full of ups and downs for sure.
So from the beginning, you were kind of being groomed to take over for Ralph.
Well, things changed for sure. Let's be honest. When the old regime was here, that was the plan. And that's what Ralph talked to me about. I think when ownership changed, all that went out the window, and you can't kind of earn your stripes again. So I think just based off of the conversations that I had with the old regime, yes, that was the plan. Ralph was absolutely terrific about it, always giving advice and always just doing all the right things. But when ownership changed, all that, equity went out the window, as it should. Like, I get it, right? And so you have to earn your way back into it, and a lot of luck involved in that as well. So, but I'm grateful to be where I'm at for sure.
So when you come into the Clippers, I mean, obviously Ralph Lawler is a legend in Clipper Nation. Probably the most celebrated Clipper of all time.
Easily.
If we're being honest here. And should be the first banner in the new arena hanging.
100%.
But I also have to imagine that in the broadcasting world, there's kind of a like fraternity there where, like you were saying before there was League Pass or online, subscriptions where you can hear local broadcasts and all that. You guys all, I'm sure, were very aware of each other. So when you were going into like the Clippers, was there like this, like, I'm going to be working with Ralph Lawler. Like, this guy is, I mean, one of the most celebrated broadcasters of all time. And maybe I'm skewed. I grew up a Clippers fan since I was like 5 years old. So like Ralph Lawler was like my second dad growing up. So, maybe I'm totally overblowing his status, but is there any of that kind of in the back of your head?
So you're not overblowing his status. It's widely recognized in our business. When I interviewed in '05, they point blank asked me, why did I want the job? And I said, well, I'll start with, it's an NBA job. This is my dream. And I said, but the crown jewel of this job would be to work and learn from Ralph Lawler and just kind of see how his insights were. And one thing that I always marveled about Ralph was how he made the worst games still entertaining or still something that a Clipper fan would want to tune into. And I was excited to kind of learn that craft. And it's not something you can learn almost. I think you have to be born with that kind of personality. When things get bad, he kind of just really is able to downshift and make it great. But that's what I told the Clippers. I'm like, this is the crown jewel of the job, is to work with Ralph. And I was very aware of it. And, I think it took about, I would say maybe 2 weeks to work with Ralph for him to understand that I care about this craft. Like, I'm not here just to have fun and screw around. I think he was as I would be too. He was very calculated with me, I think, for the first 2 weeks, just trying to see, do I go to shoot-arounds? Do I do my work? What do I know? Do I talk to players? And I think he saw that I was all about that. And all the walls came down, and I started going to, I bet I've had 500 dinners with Ralph and Joe Lawler over the years. And it started early in Santa Barbara when that was my first training camp in 2007. And, he just let the walls all come down. I think once he saw that I was dedicated to the craft of play-by-play and kind of represented the team in the right way, I think he saw this guy's going to be all right.
Can you give us a wild Ralph on the road story?
So, I don't know how wild it is.
Come on, don't pull punches.
I'll tell you what,
he's a blow on the table. Ralph's got a machete in one hand.
I'll tell you what, man, he's built differently. There were times, every time we land in a place, let's say when we play in Minnesota, we'll fly to Milwaukee, or Minnesota, we fly to Memphis, or wherever. That night after the game, you land at anywhere between 12 and 2 a.m. Every time. He looks for the bar. He sees, is the bar open? Is there a bar open? He will look to see if there's a place to go. And once in New York, he found a place that was open until 4 o'clock in the morning. So we landed at 3. He and Joe go straight to the bar, and the bar stays open beyond 4 because Joe, and the bartender are just yucking it up, and they become friends. And so when we get back to New York later in the year, we were in, I think, to play either the Knicks or the Nets, whichever one it was, we come back. The bartender had gone to a different restaurant. So now Ralph and Joe go to that restaurant. They get free meals. They get taken care of. So Ralph would close down bars every single city until his last road trip. And the one story that's, I'll clean it up as best I can for Ralph. It was Sweet Joe's birthday. It was Sweet Joe's birthday. And we were in San Diego for training camp that was about to begin the next day. And we were staying at in La Jolla, where Torrey Pines is. And they've got a great restaurant. It's an amazing restaurant. And we get there, and the service was fine, but it was slow to get our food. And Ralph had a drink before, had a couple of drinks during with no food. And so Ralph just kind of wanders off, and we don't know where he is. And I'm sitting at the table with Joe and all their extended family. And I'm like, why am I even here? So then we find out Ralph is just mingling with all the people in the restaurant. He has had plenty to drink, a lot. He goes up to his room, and it's 11:30 at night by this time. And he's in his room. They send his food up. And I know how I am if I've had one too many. I'm out the next day. I'm not getting up, and I'm not going to function. I text Ralph. I said, hey, listen, let me know if you need help getting to practice tomorrow. I can drive, but I'm leaving at 9. Let me know if you need your parking pass. I'll help you out. So I see him I'm going to get coffee, and I see him at 8:15, as chipper as can be. Hey, Reed, what's going on? And I'm like, what? How are you alive right now? He's like, no, I'm fine. I feel great. He's like, I understand you were a bit of a handful last night. That's what he says to me. And we go as if nothing happened. He has a liver that just is next level. It's a Kawhi-like liver. It's amazing.
That's the gold. So, that's what I want. That's the gold right there. That's the soundbite, Brian. Mark that down.
I'll tell you this, though. He works hard. One of my most, the things that I take away from Ralph, he loves the craft. And even until his last game, he was trying to get better. He would take notes, but he lives his life. And it's a good example. He and Joe, Sweet Joe is such an amazing lady, one of my favorite people ever. And they live life. So they go out to nice restaurants. They go see shows in New York. They're always doing something. And he's a gentleman. When they go to a really nice restaurant on the road, he dresses up. He wears nice slacks and a sport coat. I'm wearing jeans and sweatpants or whatever. He's always a gentleman, and it was pretty fun. And those days with Ralph and Joe, I'll remember forever. They're good. So,
at what point did you know you were going to be taking over the TV broadcast?
It was in the summer of last year.
Wow.
So it wasn't any time during the year at all. Like I said, it was, you have to earn your stripes again with the ownership. And I agree with that. And I knew that it could go anyway. I knew it could go any direction. But I had been auditioning analysts for the Clippers throughout the process. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to know the answer. Maybe I didn't know, well, who's going to be the play-by-play guy if I'm doing this. I just showed up. I did some auditions with some of the analysts, and then after I got home from one of them, my agent called me and said, "Hey, do you have a minute?" And I said, I do. What's going on? He's like, "Are you with your family?" And I said, "Yeah." And now I'm like kind of worried. I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" He's like, "Well, I want you to just get off the phone real quick and tell him that you're the new voice of the LA Clippers." So that's how I found out. It was a good night. And it's been a good year, despite all the stuff we're going through now. I truly believe that I have the best job in the league. I sincerely believe that.
That's awesome. So before we get to this year, I got to ask, so Ralph's last game, when he, went on to center court and gave the speech, I was still living in the Bay Area. I moved back to LA almost a year to the date now, which is crazy. But I was in the Bay for that. I was watching it on League Pass. I think I was like making dinner. I was in the kitchen with my laptop open, like crying my eyes out as he's like delivering this speech. Cause like I said, he was like a second father in a lot of ways. Like you said he made basketball fun to watch. And that was the thing. I don't know how much of like diehard Clipper Nation would be around if it wasn't for Ralph making you feel optimistic to come back to that next game and like making it interesting to listen to and watch and all of that. What was the vibe like? I mean, I know you got close with Ralph. Like, what was just going into that night, his like pregame, routine, everything just kind of leading up to that? What was that like? I mean, you probably have one of the closest accounts to that whole situation than anybody.
I never talked to Ralph about it. Like, I'm a sentimental guy, and I know that he is too. And so my mind works like this. I was looking through Ralph's lenses, and I would be like, man, this is the last time you're going to be at Madison Square Garden. This is the last time you're going to see this team. This is the last time you're ever going to be in Memphis. This is the last time you're going to be in Orlando. I never said those things, but I thought them. And I kind of know how he works. Like, again, I know that he's a sentimental guy, so I just kept quiet. But as we got to that last game, I get this email from the LA Clippers digital department, and it said, "Hey, Lee Jenkins has written something for Ralph. Would you voice it? We think you're the only guy that should do it. If you don't, we'll find someone else." And I don't know if you could hear it or have heard it, the thing with that little montage they did. And I remember reading it, and I was like emotional. I'm like, dude, I can't do this. And I got through it. And I never saw the final product until I showed up right before the game. And Charlie Widows, who's the head of the digital department for the Clippers, says, "Hey, do you want to see it?" And the first thing that says, I think it opens up with the music, and then you hear, "Hello, everybody, I'm Ralph Lawler." And I remember going, oh, I had to stop for like a second. I'm like, I'm not ready for this. I had a little bingo thing I bought the day before, like for a lapel pin. I was super emotional about it. And then Fox had asked me the day before if I would sign him off, like if I'd be there for that last segment and kind of give him my thoughts of our relationship over the years. And I told the producer, who's producer this year, Stephen Rose, I said, once I'm on there, get the camera off me, because I don't know if I'm going to make it through. I don't know if I'm going to be all right. So I had it written down, like verbatim what I wanted to say. I was able to get through it. Once you're on camera, a lot of that emotion can go away. Once you're on the air, that stuff goes away and you're able to kind of focus on what you're trying to do. But leading up to it, I had butterflies. I think Ralph was just in another world, to be honest. I think there was so much greatness thrown at him every arena that we went to. And I found it hard to I'm like, if I'm him, I'm finding this difficult to focus every night, because everybody's reminding you that this is the last year, and he still had gas in the tank. I think he stepped away at the right time, in the sense of you want to leave with, ability, as opposed to being kind of, drowned out. But I think he was emotional. I thought it was awesome that Walton got to do the game. Mm-hmm. And then I did a segment with Walton, which was a whole nother thing, which was very, very interesting. But I thought Ralph handled it well. After that game was over, I had given Ralph a kind of a retirement gift. I made a desk from the hardwood floor of the Clippers, like it's a big desk, and I delivered it to him the next morning. And I could just tell that he was so emotionally spent. Like he had nothing left at all, like zero emotions. But we still had a playoff series to get to. So I could just tell that he was just absolutely bankrupt of any feelings at that moment. He got him going again for the playoffs naturally. But, you know, I think you couldn't ask for a better send-off. You really couldn't. All the teams, you know, did something. The fans, what were the signs? Were they bingo or oh me, oh my signs? They had that last, yes, get it done. Yes. I mean, it was just crazy, man. Yep, that's the one right there. I mean, it was awesome. It was such a great send-off that I was happy for him to be able to write off like that, getting into the Hall of Fame. It was awesome.
Yeah, what a fun last season for him, too. I mean, Ralph had to watch some absolutely shitty
awful. Just awful.
Are we able to swear on this? Okay,
yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let him fly. Sorry to tell you an hour into this that you can swear, but yeah.
But for him to go out on a season that was just a team punching above its belt the whole time, so much fun. Like one of the most fun seasons I've ever watched in my 20 plus years of being a Clipper fan, and to like have a historic comeback in the playoffs. And then even though you lose in the first round, there's that like, oh, we have a big summer coming. Like everybody, like I couldn't like think the only other way I could see that ending better with such a legend like Ralph would obviously be a championship. But I feel like it was like the most fitting Clippers ending for him for this, like, okay, there's a new, like it really felt like we were entering a new era in so many different ways. You know what I mean? That it kind of fit perfectly.
Well, it worked out for me in a lot of levels, having been given the reins to a job. When you're following a legend, it's the toughest thing in the world you'll ever have to do. You know, Joe Davis did an amazing job with the Dodgers, Alex Voss with the Kings, and Bob Miller. Those guys were so good. And I was kind of nervous. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it as well as they did. But to have a great team to follow in made my job a lot easier. But for Ralph to finish with that team, obviously he's seen more Clipper basketball than all of us combined. I have to think that that's one of his top 2 or 3 favorite teams. I know he goes back to the 2000 team with Lamar and Darius and those guys. I know he loved that squad, and rightfully so. But this team, there's so much optimism, and it's a fun world to live in and to broadcast in when you know down the road it's going to be even better than it is now. But to win the games they won last year in the fashion that they did it, with the style that they did it, and the front office that we have that is so amazing. It's a great way to leave. Obviously, we all want to go out with a title. But if you gave me an option of 40 years in the NBA, finishing as a Hall of Famer, I'm taking that every single time. And I don't think Ralph missed anything in his career by not calling a championship, other than just the personal satisfaction to do it. His legend will be what it is, no matter what.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody wants to go out on a title, but in a lot of ways, I feel like the last couple of years is almost bigger than a title, because it feels like the legitimacy of a franchise more so than just hanging a banner or getting a ring. Like, it's with Ballmer coming in, and, you know, now there's a new arena to look forward to. It's all the work that has gone on just around the city with the community, everything that they've done with the franchise almost means more to me. If for someone who's been watching as long as I have, means way more than putting a banner up. Is like, oh, this is like, it almost feels like an expansion now in the league, where it's like, oh, there's another NBA team here now.
I think that's a great point. Like, I look at this situation that we're in right now. Let's do the doomsday scenario that we don't come back and play, right? Awful. It'd be a bummer. We get it. I understand it. I'm not complaining. It would be awful considering what the Clippers have done. My solace in the whole thing is just what you said. Like, let's take it away. This is a legit franchise now. This isn't they got lucky on 1-year deals and they put it together, caught lightning in a bottle, and next year we don't know what's going to happen. Next year, does the front office make the right decisions? Is the ownership that committed? We know the front office only makes great decisions exclusively, right? We know the owner's down. He's going to do whatever it takes to win. So your point of hanging a banner or having stability is going to be there going forward. And that's the best thing about this. It is the unfortunate situation where we don't play out this season, where I think the Clippers are the favorite. I'm biased, but I still think they're the favorite to win it all. If it doesn't happen this year, I know it's going to happen. And I know it's going to happen a lot of times. And I know that 10 years from now, 15 years from now, this is going to be viewed as the world-class organization in the NBA. There's no doubt in my mind. And the blueprint, the path that they've taken has led us all to here. And now we're in a nice little area and we're going to be here for a while.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So I got to ask, ended Ralph's career. Now you start on television. What was that first game like on TV? And what's been the big difference between radio and TV play-by-play? But like, what are some of the big changes you've had to make there?
The biggest change is, so on radio, I was the only guy, right? Mm-hmm. So I was the analyst and the play-by-play guy. I did the reads. So I tell you everything I see, like literally everything. Like one of the things that I did when I was a kid was I drew a basketball court. I drew seats. And I'm like, what are the things that I can describe during a game? The coach walking up and down. What's he doing with his arms? Is Doc yelling? Is he covering his mouth to shield it from the crowd noise? I want you to see and hear all of that. On TV, you see and hear all that. You don't need me to tell you. So I'm kind of part of I feel like I'm leaving breadcrumbs for the analyst to like, I'm like, oh, what a move. Hey, how about that screen? And if he wants to talk about it, he can. If he doesn't want to talk about it, I'm giving that attention to the viewers. You're trying to capture the highlight. But really, I'm trying to make the analyst sound great. And it's not hard because Chauncey, Corey, and Fratello I think they're awesome. I love all of them equally, and they bring a different kind of skill set to the show. But I missed calling every play. Always trying to think of a way to describe something, whether it's a rebound, trying to come up with a new way to do it. That's the biggest difference. I'm not being as descriptive as I was on radio for the obvious reasons. The first game was, whenever I see anybody else, I'm a glass half full guy.
Yeah.
When I look in the mirror, I'm a glass half empty guy. So we're in Honolulu for training camp, and I'm like, this would be really embarrassing if you got fired after one game. That's how I think. My family was there, and I'm like, I'm not even kidding. Like I woke up, and I think the game was at night. The second game we played might have been during the day. And I thought, how embarrassing would it be to get the call in front of your boys telling you that you no longer work and now you got to pay for a flight home. You're kicked out of the hotel. This is the mind that I have.
Welcome to the club.
You're speaking our language. That's exactly how we are.
Oh, good. Then we're birds of a feather.
Every time I've been at Staples Center, I'm waiting for security to remove me from the check room. Like, how the fuck did you get in here, dude? You gotta go.
So I got through the first quarter. And I don't want to pretend like it was, reinventing the wheel, but I'm like, all right. I think I'm going to make it through this game.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I'm going to make it through the second game. And then once we got out of the preseason, which is it's a tough game to broadcast, especially your first game with a new analyst. So we were chatting a lot about the season because to me, the game is not that important. But once the games began, that's when the real show started. How does this affect you in May? What can you do this in the playoffs, this rotation? What do you like? And that's when it got real and that's when it got fun. And we had some real barn burners to start, some, close finishes, which, is my favorite part of the job is when you have a nail biter coming down and you get a chance to make a big call. Yeah. I was lucky to have those moments. I'm lucky to have a great team. It's not an advantage that Ralph had and he thrived. It made my job in the transition a lot easier for sure. But I definitely thought I was going to be doing a walk of shame in Honolulu with my kids, toting their luggage behind them. And hey, Daddy, why are we going home so soon? I didn't have to have that talk, thankfully.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Do you get a little more freedom when you're doing the radio broadcast? So just to make things weird real quick, I just got to say, I was obsessed with your radio call. Your first season on TV has been amazing. You're doing great. But like I became a Brian Sieman fan off of your Clippers radio call. And having lived in the Bay Area for like 10 years, half the times just through my subscription, I would listen to the radio. Like I have a tendency on national broadcasts, and you don't have to comment on this. There's a lot of national broadcasters I'm not a fan of. So I'll watch the game on mute and listen to the local radio broadcast. And I would do that anytime there was like a Clippers national game. I would turn the radio on and listen to that. But I've got like I have really, really distinct memories of like riding my bike through Berkeley on my way home or something like that with my headphones and listening to you calling a game and like losing myself on the ride because you're painting the picture. Like you were just saying, like I could see where the ball was moving across the court and all of that. But it seems like in radio, you had a little more freedom with the way you could call things. Like I feel like the hot damn call kind of went away when you went on TV.
Yeah. What's going on? What's going on with that?
So for real, I did hot damn on radio or TV only for like it has to be a tight game.
Okay.
And it has to put you on top. So I've had, I don't know, I think I said it the first time I said it this year. I don't remember what game. It might have been Oklahoma City. Paul George puts the Clippers on top with the three, or if it was maybe it was Houston. There were like 3 in a row. But the first time I said it, I thought, what if I get in trouble for saying that? What if I get a call from like the FCC? But no one did. No one said a word. And I think the Clippers put it on their Instagram story. And I'm like, they're not mad about it.
Yeah, I guess
so
we're okay.
I did it again and no one said it. I don't think I said hot damn on the radio more than 4 or 5 times.
Really?
Yeah.
It felt like it was every game, 5-6 times a game.
Maybe I said it more. I used to say it with DeAndre.
It was
when DeAndre would make 2 free throws, I would always say, hot damn, you made them both.
Maybe that's why it stuck with me.
Yeah, that was
maybe.
Well, that was also why it was only 3-4 many times that he ever said it on the radio too. So,
but the freedom on radio for sure. Like it's in our business, it's a cliche. Being on radio is like it's a blank canvas. On TV, at times it feels to me like it's paint by numbers. In that, you've got reads. So like you get to the free throw line, and on radio, that's where I start telling a story about one thing or another. On TV, you get the guy to the free throw line, and you have like maybe 5 seconds before he puts up that shot. And sometimes, most of the time, and rightfully so, the analyst is leading you into that. He's the one talking. Right. Once the analyst gets done, I've got a read that takes about 20 seconds during that second free throw. So that's kind of a paint by numbers. I don't have that freedom to kind of branch out during free throws, which I really love to do, to kind of tell stories or get you caught up on statistics or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I just enjoyed learning again. Like it was fun to watch games and hear other announcers, what they do and how they are describing a play or not describing a play, and just letting it breathe. And you have more freedom on radio because you have to have it. You either if I'm not talking, you're not hearing anything, right? And I just love trying to describe as much as I could on radio. And like I said, I put together like a court, and it just what else could I describe? And on TV, it's not needed. Yeah. I enjoyed doing it, but it's fatiguing. It was fatiguing. Every game I was dead. I was absolutely fatigued after a game. And Ralph, meanwhile, is up and skipping up and down the plane looking for bars to shut down. I'm like taking a nap before we take off, but I miss it. But I've just so much enjoyed working with a huge production team and an analyst every night. It's just been a thrill. And I've got the best job maybe in broadcast. I really believe that.
All right, I'm done. I'm done with us sucking up. Okay, I'm done sucking up to the guest. We got to come with the heavy hitting questions now. Okay?
You said this was earlier. Okay, you said it was going to happen earlier. Here we go.
I've got some quick hitters for you. Okay. Top 5 WNBA players that you've seen play.
Okay, in no order, but I'll give you 5. Are you a WNBA guy?
Yeah.
So Katie Smith is my all-time favorite player.
Okay.
You're aware of Katie Smith?
Uh-huh.
Super favorite. So if we're going to go best, Candace Parker, Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops. I'm at 4.
That's 4.
Tamika Catchings was amazing.
Okay. That's 5. That's 5.
You know That's what? 5. Hold on. I got to go Lauren Jackson, and there's Sue Bird. I can't stop at 5.
Who are you kicking out, Sieman? Who are you kicking out?
I guess geez, I can't. I love all the. I can't. Lauren Jackson was so good. Sue Bird is so amazing. I saw Taurasi.
Oh,
I'm telling you,
killer.
I'm a true aside here. If you give the WNBA a chance, you will freaking love it. I have such love for those ladies and the way they play the game, their backstories, what they have to do in the off seasons. I loved that 6 years of my life so much. I was emotional when the seasons ended. I just loved their stories. They were always great. I mean, it was just, who are you? Give me your top 5 then. You go.
My top 5?
That's what I said.
Oh, wow.
I'm asking the questions now.
All right. Okay. All right. Calm down. Settle down. Taurasi has to be up there. She's a killer. She's one of my favorite players to watch.
Awesome.
Candace Parker, Sue Bird. Let's see. I don't want to do reruns here.
I'm surprised Maya Moore has not been brought up yet.
Yeah, Maya Moore.
I didn't see Maya Moore play enough, but I'm 100% on board. I didn't see her play. She was not in the league when I was there. I was there for Simone's rookie year, Simone Augustus's. She was awesome.
Yeah.
And then Lisa Leslie. I mean, you can't really. But there's so much talent in the league right now. Like you were saying, if anybody watches it, all those girls can hoop. Every single one of them is a killer. So there's so much talent in the league right now. It's really hard to like narrow down. But
the Sparks have loaded up.
The Sparks have loaded up. Get Tolliver back. Yeah.
Any chance Ballmer starts a WNBA franchise? Give him the forum, man. He's got 2 arenas now.
I wouldn't put anything past him, for sure. And I'll tell you, if he does it, he's going to do it right, and they're going to win. That's all I know.
So we can count on you to set up a meeting and have him buy the Sparks and put them in the forum, right? That's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad to get your approval there.
All right, give him another heavy hitter, Joseph.
Another heavy hitter. Let me see.
You've got one on there that I'm waiting to hear.
Which one is that?
The conversion. Number 6.
Are you converted yet? So there's a lot of stuff. I did my research on you, and you were talking about a little bit. You were a Magic fan, but you were a Laker fan. Have you been converted yet?
Converted from what to what?
From a Laker fan to a Clipper fan.
So it's a fun thing. I mean, once you start working, like after I got out of college, I had no affiliation to a team in basketball because I knew that that's where I wanted to be. It was all Magic. Yeah, it was all it was all Magic for me. And once Magic was gone, I appreciate the Lakers. Don't get me wrong. Great franchise, gold standard of the league as far as winning titles and stuff. But once Magic was done, and once I got out of the NBA or got out of college, it was any team that would be willing to have me as their guy will be my number one focus. So no, it was a simple thing to let go for sure. Converted. Give me a break. I've only been here for 15 years, whatever it is. Come on.
I needed to know. I needed you on record saying that you were converted.
I have a legitimate question.
What are you trying to say about my question?
Yeah, thank you, Brian, because that was not a legitimate question. But next, go on. Yes.
Wait a minute.
No, so when you came to the Clippers, obviously it was during the Donald Sterling regime. Was there anything in the back of your head? I know you were excited to be with with an NBA team and finally be in the NBA full time, but was there any part of you that was just kind of like we'll see how this goes? Because obviously the reputation was there. Was there any hesitation? Like obviously you wanted to get in anywhere, but something in the back of your head, right? Like going to work with
we only knew of Sterling being kind of cheap. Mm-hmm. But I gauged it by, Ralph was there, I think at that time for 27 years when I got there. I did not communicate with Ralph before I had the job. Even though I was working in Minnesota at the time, I did not. He was actually in Europe during the whole summer. So there was no communication with him. And I'm not sure he would have provided it, to be honest. And I don't take that as a fault to him. I didn't. I judged it by the people that I'd be working with every day. So Ralph was one of those guys that I admired from afar. And the people that I met during the interview process, both in 2005 and 2007, I thought, if these are the guys calling the shots, I feel good about it. You don't, to be honest, I was never going to be at a level where I could just say, well, this team's not going to win a title. I don't want to be there. You know what I mean? Like an NBA job is such a valuable thing. I think it's the best league. I think it's the best run league. And I think Los Angeles and New York are the two best cities. Los Angeles is my favorite city even before I got here. When I was growing up in Iowa, it was my favorite city. So to have an opportunity to be there, I was going to make the most of it. I remember feeling, after I got the job, and so to answer your question, no trepidation about coming here, considering ownership. The hardest games to do were against the Lakers, though, and it was just to see the fandom that they had, both for road games and home games. Right. And I thought with that ownership, and I came to terms with it, like I really did. I'm like, you know what? We're never going to have that. But I get to watch basketball every night. I get to stay at home with my boys in the summer. At the time, they were, very young when I came to this realization. And I live in a great city, and, I have food on our table. My wife doesn't have to work right now. This is a great gig. So what? We're never going to have banners. I came to terms with it. But those 4 nights that we played the Lakers, I was just green with envy every single night. It hurt. You'd see Kobe coming out of the tunnel, and like the crowd. I think of a concert that you've been to when that band first walks on stage, the electricity, that's what it was like. And I'm like, our guys were getting booed on their home floor, and it hurt. Mm-hmm. Like it really hurt. I hurt for them. I hurt for just the fans that were there to support the team. Those days are gone. We are going to have banners. We are going to have success, and we are going to have our own world when those arenas are built. That arena is built. So it's a good place to be. It really is.
Okay, cool. I like that you were going to judge it off the people you were working with, and you walked in and Ralph Waldo the bar every night. And you're like, this is going to be good.
This is good. Yeah. I think I'll stick around. Yeah.
I can't use the words that he used when I would go to bed instead of waiting. But there was some colorful language and some interesting text messages that I would receive from him from the bar while he was closing it down. But it was all in good fun.
We'll get those when we're done. You can read us a couple of those when we're
done. So, yeah, I mean, do you have any thoughts about, obviously nobody knows, but the season coming back, are you hopeful of the season returning? It would be a brutal way to end this season and your first season, obviously on TV, but just in general. Are you hopeful of a return this year?
I'm more hopeful than I was maybe a month ago. A month ago, if you want me to be honest, I'm like, there's just no way. There's no way we can come back.
Yeah.
There just isn't. But hearing, Dr. Fauci say that, sports without fans can exist, they can figure it out. I know this. As I mentioned, I really believe, hand on a Bible, that the NBA is the best run league, and it's got the best leadership in almost every facet. There are so many great owners, but Adam Silver he's awesome. And his group that he works with, they're going to figure it out. If there is a way, it's going to happen. And I think they're committed to doing it the right way. And 2 weeks ago, I kind of felt a sense of optimism. Now, to be honest, I only know what everybody knows, what we read. Yeah. I'm not getting any inside information. I haven't asked, to be frank. A month ago, I thought no chance. 2 weeks ago, maybe it could happen. An abbreviated regular season goes into maybe a different format for the playoffs. Like I said, I only know what everybody reads.
Right.
But the only downside to it is I think there's going to have to be a vaccination before we're all together again, and that's the one part. And I get it. Like, I'm not complaining about it in any way in that regard. Like, people are really dealing with some serious stuff, but until there's a vaccination, I might not be at Staples Center for over a year. It might even be longer than that. We're going to be, the thought is calling games off of monitors from the studios at Fox. That's how we won't travel with the team. That's the talk is at least a month ago. So, but it's such a crazy thing, and everybody's in the same boat, which makes it maybe easier for me to accept instead of, you guys are probably too young to remember the lockout of 2011. The NBA was locked out, but everything else was going on. And I'd be watching NFL games, I'd be watching hockey and college basketball, and I'd be like, man, I'm dying here. I just feel like my world has stopped. Everyone's world has stopped here. So it makes it a lot easier to accept, and hopefully we'll all be able to get back to work in some capacity in this summer. Like I said, I have a little bit more optimism than I did maybe 30 days ago.
Totally. One quick question before we start to wrap it up here. So you are now the TV guy. We've got Noah Eagle taking over radio. What's that been like mentoring him? And Noah, I got to be honest, I was kind of excited when he came over because I'm a huge fan of his dad. With League Pass and all of that, we all got exposure to other teams' local broadcasts, and you don't have to comment on this, but there's a lot of bad ones out there. But a handful of very good ones. I think the Nets, obviously, I think the Clippers have the best broadcast team, but I think the Nets are a super close second. And I was like, when I found out that we were getting Ian Eagle's son, I was like, oh, there's going to be something fun coming here because Ian Eagle is one of my favorite TV broadcasters out there. So what's it been like working with him and kind of, I mean, almost straight out of college, right? That he took this job. So obviously you have a lot to give on. What's that experience been like?
Well, so you're spot on with Ian. I think he and Mike Breen are the two best in the league. I think they're amazing. Ian's sense of humor. He could have been a stand-up comedian. I talked with him early on in the year. He was super generous with his time with me. I just asked him questions about the transition because he did it similarly with Nets Radio to Nets TV many years ago, and kind of gave me keys to think about. And I've never spoken to anybody that knew our craft better than Ian Eagle. Like, it's crazy the way he broke it down and just answered questions, and he was real about everything, you know. And I don't want to pretend like we're bosom buddies, but I love him. I think he's an amazing human being too. I'm going to say this, it's going to sound like a negative, but it's not. How have I mentored Noah Eagle? I haven't. He needs no mentoring. Like, I mean it. Like, first of all, I just mentioned his dad, right?
Yeah,
like he has a question, he goes to his dad.
Sure.
He asks me more questions about logistics, about traveling. And you know, when we first talked, how it works with engineers and statisticians and stuff like that. But as far as like how to call a game, I literally have not. I'm here if he ever has a question for sure. But I got to be honest, I don't think he needs my help. He's got the best teacher. He went to the premier school for broadcasting in Syracuse University, and he's crushed it. And I'll be honest, I mean, I see him calling Super Bowls in 5 to 10 years. Like, I think he's a network guy. He's 20. I think he turned 23 with us this year. The most mature, he'd be considered mature for a 50-year-old. Like, but he's fun. Like, he's not a stuffy dude, man.
Centrum Silver and Metamucil every morning, and
yeah, he takes a vanilla Ensure. He's got to sit by, takes naps every couple hours. No, he's a funny dude, super pop culture nerd that way. Just a great guy. I don't want to call him a kid because he's more than that. And Clippers hit a home run with him. They did. I don't know how long he'll be here. I don't. Like, I just think he's going to be skyrocketing to the next place. And if there's anything I can do to help him, I'm always here for it. It's more logistics with that. Like, where do we park for the airplane? He's not going to ask me about how to call the fourth quarter when it's tight. He's already got the best mentor there is.
For sure.
I got one quick question. When are you going to start dancing in his dance videos? I don't know if
you know it's funny, man. He can dance, like, and I saw the first one he did with Beverly, and I'm like, you know, people can see this, right? And he's like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, Brian. And he did. He got a lot of traction with that. And then he did one where he actually put on some moves, and I'm like, I get it now. Dude, I get it. Good job out of you. So we win a title. I'll do a dance. How's that?
All right, we're keeping you to that. There's no way you can get out of that.
I won't lie to you. In 1984, I did take some breakdancing lessons, so pretty much know how to pop and lock and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So,
broken down cardboard waiting for you, dude.
Yeah.
If you don't think I carried that with me to my elementary school, you would be wrong.
That's good.
Joseph, is there anything else you wanted to go over before we wrap this?
Yeah, I mean, we could do that segment that we've been trying. All right, so there's a segment. It's whatever. We've been trying to get it off the ground. I don't really know how well it's going. I also don't know how to intro it, so I guess.
How excited are you right now, Brian? I know he's he's really building.
I mean, I don't know how to intro it, and I don't know how well it's going. It's a good.
It's really good. Just take my word on it. Great segment. It's called Track of the Week. Okay, so
I didn't hear what it was. It's called what?
Track of the Week.
Track of the Week. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a song that has maybe gotten you through this week, or maybe has been the theme song of your week. So we'll start with you if you're ready.
Actually kind of like this segment. So my boys are just starting to get into like real music, right?
Okay.
And I'm kind of like a classic rock guy in the sense of like the Stones and the Beatles and Eric Clapton are my favorite. U2 is a favorite of mine. But my oldest son is getting into like real classic rock, and he brought out Led Zeppelin. And he had some other curious choices that I steered him away from. I'm like, listen, man, if you rank all the bands, these guys are not in the top 5,000.
Tell me one of the bands that he was trying to.
I don't want to be disrespectful to those who like it, but it was like, I'm not a fan of Black Sabbath. I don't like Black Sabbath.
Wow.
I'm not
Breaking news.
Just not a fan.
Oh my God.
Well, we long story short, we were watching like the Marvel movies, and Iron Man we watched about a year ago. And so he loved the song. And I'm like, listen, you can hear that song, but I'm not an Ozzy fan. I gave him all the mythical things that Ozzy Osbourne has done, showed him some Ozzy Osbourne stuff. And unfortunately, that only strengthened his love for them. So he starts digging around, and he comes across Led Zeppelin and the Immigrant Song, where we played this week, and it has been in my head every single day this week. So Immigrant Song, Kashmir, he's got about 10 songs out of their catalog that he has been down with. So that is the track of the week. Go for it.
Are you a Lord of the Rings fan?
So I showed them, we watched the animated version of The Hobbit. Have you seen that? The animated version. Oh, it's awful, by the way. But I showed them the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
And I think it was too much for them. But I told them, I said, hey, remember that animated show I told you about? That's what he's talking about here, right here in Mordor. But it's been cool, and I hope that it progresses. But he knows all the words. He got them pretty quickly. So Immigrant Song is the track of the week for me.
Man, so Sabbath, Zeppelin, your kid's on a path, man. He might be a Dion Waiters fan.
Just like I was in high school, so it'll fit perfectly.
That's good. I just want to know what you have against three-fingered guitar players. I just don't understand how you would be so prejudicial. I just don't get it.
I'm actually trying. So one of the things we're doing here is like I love Pixar movies and I love Disney movies. I love them all. We see them all whenever they come out. So we're trying to slowly integrate like adult movies. And the one movie that I watched last week without them was Spinal Tap. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure that they can handle it. I don't like some of the topics that they're talking about, but Spinal Tap reminds me a little bit of a kind of a toned down Black Sabbath in a lot of ways. But we're trying to introduce Spinal Tap to them maybe in the next year or so.
That's good.
That's real good.
Well, what is track of the week? I'm not the only one that gets to share here.
No. We all do.
So my track of the week, I've been burning through a lot of music lately. I actually, like this last week, went through a bunch of records that I was really into like 10 years ago. Most of them hold up. I've had a couple where I've been like, ooh, what was I thinking listening to that? But my big track of the week is this French band called Sport, actually. And maybe it's because I've been missing basketball so much, but the band is called Sport. And the entire record, every song is named after an Olympic athlete. And the song that I've been stuck on, it's one of my favorite songs, is Jacques Mayol. And basically the song is him trading postcards with somebody, like almost love letters back and forth with this person. And this whole idea of like one day we'll travel and see all the rest of the world together. And it just seems super fitting with everything that we're going through right now. And even this just video conferences, that's all this. I mean, this is the new postcard, right? So like, it's the only way we're communicating with most of the people in our lives right now. So it was kind of fitting, and it's just one of my favorite songs. So I've been listening to that a bunch this week.
What kind of music is that?
It's like emo, pop punk kind of stuff.
I'm going to look that up.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to tell you whether or not you can listen to it going forward, just like I do myself.
That's good.
Maybe I will be escorted out of Chick Hearn next time.
That's right. So for me, I've been sucked into the TikTok vortex. I don't know, Brian, you've got kids. Okay. So there's this TikTok where you do this dance and like your face comes from somewhere else on the screen. And when you hit a certain
I've seen it. I've seen it. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah. So that song has been stuck in my head all day for the last like 2.5 weeks. It's called Buttercup by Jack Stauber. And I got to be honest with you, I think I really like this song. I think I'm really into it. Even though it comes from TikTok, which I'm not super proud of admitting that I've been watching TikTok.
But are you doing the dance then?
No, I refuse to make one, Brian. I refuse to make a TikTok and do the dances.
You're just a lurker in the shadows on TikTok?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I love TikTok. Like, it's really creative, like what some people do, and I enjoy it. But like, I got sucked down the rabbit hole this morning, and what I hate about TikTok, I hate this, is like, I found this box buried in my backyard, and they open it up, like for part 2. I'm like, no, I'm not giving you my business.
Yeah.
No, just show me the whole thing. I'm not
That's
doing
right.
that.
Yeah,
I
no,
surprised my boyfriend, like for part 2 to see his reaction. No, I refuse to do that. Then they're tricking you with reverse video, but they're making it look like it's being not. And so I don't even like the dances. I don't even know what I like about TikTok. I just enjoy it. Like, I enjoy the creativity from some of it, but I would say 90% of it is either dancing or some idiot trying to get you to like the second part of their video. And I just can't stand it. But anyway, TikTok is pretty cool. You should be embarrassed that that's your song of the week. That's
All right, fair enough.
We're going to end it there. Brian, so much for joining us. We've been wanting to do this for a while, get you on here. Unfortunately, we had to do it now. Our hope was to do it in the off season. Hopefully this isn't the off season. But man, I just got to say, I'm going to butter you up one last time before we let you go. You've done an awesome job your first year on TV. You had some of the biggest shoes I think any broadcaster's ever had to fill. And you stepped into them pretty seamlessly. I think it was my first game covering at Staples. You and I talked in the hallway, and I let you know that you were just doing an awesome job. It's a hell of a first season to have, man. I'm stoked that this is the year you got to kind of take it over, and with Kawhi and PG and everything that the franchise is building towards. But can't thank you enough on behalf of Clipper Nation. We want to thank you for just everything you've been doing on the broadcast, for keeping us coming back to the TV. Your job on radio has been great. You're awesome. So appreciate it. Joseph, anything you want to throw in there?
I'm just going to second everything he just said, because I'm just a really big fan of yours, and I don't want to. He's been fanboying, and I'm going to let him do that, and I'm going to stay cool. So
lurking in the shadow on TikTok.
I appreciate you both. I really do. This was a lot of fun. This was a unique thing. I've not done this before, and I enjoyed it. I've done a lot of podcasts, and most of them are a lot of fun. Some of them are kind of a drag. This was not. So I enjoyed it.
We'll talk to you tomorrow then. We'll do this again tomorrow.
Same bat time, same bat channel. I'll be right here. Boys, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, man.
Take care, guys. Be good. Stay safe.
Everybody listening, be sure to like, subscribe, download, share, wash, rinse, sanitize, repeat.
And if you don't, Donald Sterling wins.
That's a fact.